Good morning, everyone. My name's Jen Colt, as presiding member for today's meeting. I declare the meeting opened at 9:42 a.m. In doing so, I acknowledge we're hosting the meeting on the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation and are joined by people from other lands around the state. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as traditional custodians of the land of Western Australia. I respect the elders past and present and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. This meeting will be run in accordance with DAP Standing Orders and DAP Regulations 2011, and the meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. Today's meeting, the panel consists of myself as presiding member, to my left, Francesca Lafanti as deputy presiding member, and online, Nima Premji as specialist member. For the Shire of Collie, we have Councillor Ian Miffling and Councillor Joe Italiano. And from the Shire of Gingin, we have Councillor Linda Balcombe and Councillor Craig Hine. I have no apologies for this meeting, and item 3 on the agenda advises that notes of previous meetings are available on the DAP website. Moving on to part B on the agenda for the Shire of Collie, item 1, declaration of due consideration. All panel members need to have considered all documentation contained within part B of the agenda and part B related information. Could I please confirm by a show of hands that panel members have duly considered all information? That's unanimous. Thank you. Disclosures of interest. I have 2 impartiality interests from Councillor Ian Miffling and Councillor Joe Italiano. This application was raised at a councillor workshop. However, no decision was made, and I therefore approved their ability to sit and participate in this meeting. I've had no other disclosures of interest at this point, but any panel members have a disclosure of interest?
No.
If not, move on to item 3 on the DAP application, which is for a tourist development incorporating caravan park, restaurant, cafe and shop at 2850 Coalfield Road, Allenton. We have 2 presenters today, one against, one for. We have Phyllis Jendrajak speaking against the item. Phyllis, would you like to make your presentation? I remind you have 3 minutes to make the presentation. We have had your information before us before.
Thank you. Good morning to all DAP members and Secretariat. My name's Phyllis Jendrajak. I've been an Allenton resident for about 50 years. My residence is on Coalfields Road, about 1 kilometre east of the proposed development at the 2850 Coalfields. I'd like to address the transport and the proposed new local road intersection with Coalfields Road from property 2850. My concern is there'll be no safe road access point for slow-moving caravans, even with slip lanes and traffic. Over the years, when I first moved here, the road was narrow and flat and much less traffic. Over the years, Main Roads has widened it, upgraded it, they've added cambers, but Grant Street, which is between my place and the approval, now has a no exit sign, so traffic is not allowed to enter onto the highway. It's like a mirror image of the new proposed road because it has, it's on a sweeping bend, limited visibility next to the bush area. And the new proposed road is very similar. It's also on the next sweeping bend. It's got a hilly slope and limited visibility. And the access road will also need to be raised to meet the height of the Coalfields Road at the Canberra. I mean, I'm not a road engineer, I don't know. But anyway, my major concern is that this will be an extremely dangerous entry and exit site for slow-moving caravans and long vehicles, with the possibility of crashes from the speeding vehicles and poor visibility. The road has got double white lines on the bend, starts at Montgomery Street, goes down to Rose Road. The terrain of the area will be difficult to alter, even with slip lanes, traffic islands for safe access for caravans, also for nearby residents to access their driveways. 5 of the 6 submissions to Collie Shire from local Allenson residents have included concerns about speeding and danger of collisions between traffic and slow-moving caravans. So this is a valid concern. I'm not against future development, which benefits the Collie Shire, but my question is, in assessing this development proposal, what are the possible consequences of this dangerous situation with speeding traffic and slow-moving caravans? I'm requesting consideration that the proposal include only cabin accommodation for now and not caravans. And the second item that I was going to raise is in relation to condition 25. On page 4 of the Responsible Authority report, there was a query from Brendan Foley Thompson's about underground coal mining. There were actually 2 underground coal mines in close proximity to the property at 2850. The closest one was the New Australia underground mine. It closed in 1956. It was then the site of the Allenson rubbish tip, being closed for a few years. And the Black Diamond underground mine, it was an open cut and an underground. There's attachments there, you can see it. They're from the DBCA library online, but at point 7 on page 1, there's photos and descriptions where you can quite clearly see where the New Australia mine was. It's within a very short distance of the property. You can actually see the roof of the shed from that area, which I have done when I've been walking with my dog. And on page 13, the underground and open cut mines are listed and show operational dates in the column. And that was brought up on my submission about, and a couple of others about the query about underground tunnels and possible subsidence. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phyllis. Panel members, are there any questions of the presenter?
Not from me.
Not from me.
If not, thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. We may come back to you for queries later on. Thank you. Okay, so now we have Mr. Brendan Foley from Thompson's Lawyers. He has requested 10 minutes in view of the nature of the presentation and the number of points he wishes to raise, and I have granted him that. So you have 10 minutes, Brendan, from now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, presiding member, members of the panel. Would like to reiterate the conclusion from the officers of the Shire of Collie that this proposal represents a significant investment in the tourism sector within the Shire of Collie and is consistent with the aims of the local planning scheme and is going to be a critical part about the transition of this entire area away from coal-based industry to others, including tourism. In my written submission, respectfully request a number of relatively minor amendments or deletions to the officer's recommended conditions. And I tried to help you out by setting those out in a table at the end of the submission to make it easier to work through. I'm assuming that most of those are self-explanatory, so I think it would be a better use of my time to address the other submitters' comments about the road and about the underground mining. So in respect of the road and the intersection, where the proposed access road is, that is an existing gazetted road. It is just unconstructed at the moment. Main Roads have reviewed the proposed concept intersection, which includes a right turn deceleration and left turn deceleration lanes into the site off the Coalfields Highway or Coalfields Road. And as I understand it, Main Roads have got concepts for this entire stretch to be upgraded the road at this location is currently 80 kilometres an hour, but that may not be the case in the future as it builds up and is redeveloped. If you have a look at on the agenda that I have, it's page 13 of the Shire Map report has that intersection or concept intersection design, which Main Roads have indicated that they are in principle supportive of. So I'll leave that there. In terms of the document from DPERD that was provided by the other submitter, just like to say that that imagery is entirely consistent with the Demers mapping that is online, that is in my submission. So if I, on the second page, the open field that's up the top, this is where our proposal is located. And it notes that at the top right corner adjoining Allenson Oval was the West Collie underground line. That's the location that's identified in mine as being approximately 2 kilometres away. And the new Westralia underground mine is in the bushland that's to the east of the site. That was also identified in my submission. If you turn over the page to 2 more further pages, it actually shows the actual locations. So where it says W on the left-hand side, where it says areas affected by coal mining, maps A and B. If you look at map A and the W that's on the left-hand side of the plan, that is the lake that is in the southern part of the property. So that's the open cut mine. We know that there was an open cut mine on our site, but as far as we're aware, there was no underground mining and there were no mining leases for underground mining on this particular site. If the panel have got any questions regarding the other the conditions and the modifications that were requested, more than happy to address those for the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Panel members, any questions?
Yes, Ian from Collie.
Yes, Councillor.
Yes, thank you. Just in terms of the potential for subsidence coal mines and what have you, and we've just heard from Mr. Foley and from Mrs. Gendrejak, but I do refer to the information from the department. And I'll just say here that the previous application, this was the one that was submitted a couple of years ago, included development to the south of Black Lake. I'm not sure just exactly which part of the property is Black Lake, as opposed to the Black Diamond Lake. And it says the development overlied the Black Diamond Colliery, which was an underground working. This area has the potential for subsidence and sinkholes, and comments were provided in the response that care should be taken in this area. Now, that was the response from the department to this particular application that we're looking at today. So if the whole place was clear of any potential for subsidence underground mining, I wonder why the department would be saying that care should be taken in this area. And that refers to the RAA that is recommending a Section 70A notification on the title. So I don't know whether Mr. Foley's got a response to that. That's the first question I've got here from Mr. Foley's submission. And I also want to, may I continue? Is it all right to continue?
Yes, I just wondered whether he could answer that and then you can ask the other question.
Yes, certainly.
Yes.
Yes, I can answer that quite succinctly. So the area around in the southern part of the property where the lake is at the moment, that is part of the old open cut pit. And around that on the southern side in particular is identified as a waste dump on Demers system. So effectively that's where they've put their overburden and that's where the area of subsidence has a possibility to occur because it may not have been compacted properly when it was put back in. But that's the area to the south of the lake, between the lake and the river, which is shown on, again, on the plan that was prepared or submitted by the other submitter, but also in my submission, if you did a snip of the MERS website, and so that pink on page 4 of my written submission. So the area that's shown in pink on that plan are where the waste dump locations were. So you can see that that's on the southern side of where the lake is, which was the open cut. So when they cut that area, the waste was deposited on the southern side. And all of the development in our case, when we're not proposing to touch anything south of the lake, all of the development is within the open field areas, and only the camping areas are close to that lake.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor, you want to continue with the next question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Foley, I'm just seeking some clarification around this concept of workforce accommodation. On your opening page of your submission, you say that the development application was not submitted on the basis of including a dedicated workforce accommodation land use. And then on point 4, you say to make it abundantly clear, the applicant's intention is for the development to operate primarily as a tourism facility. Now, the way I'm reading that, I think there's some interpretation around the word primarily, I think. So just to be clear, are we talking about a tourist development with the potential also for workforce accommodation? Because the word primarily suggests to us, or to me, that, okay, it's primarily for tourism, but the door is open to have workforce accommodation. Am I right or am I wrong?
I can clarify this point. So there's been a lot of confusion throughout this as we submitted the proposal and then the comments back and some comments that were made by other councillors at the Shire because of the other operation that my client operates, which is primarily a workforce accommodation facility in another part of the Shire, which has been operating for 18 years. And that is targeted specifically and advertised specifically to those large businesses that primarily service the coal industry or power generation industry. This site is not intended to service those people. It is primarily a tourist facility. We're on the Mundabiddi bike trail. We're adjacent to the Black Diamond Lake and the walking and bike riding areas that are around this Shire. The definition of workforce accommodation within the town planning scheme does not prevent other people from using the accommodation. And so that's why my submission was that it doesn't actually make that much of a difference. If people are attending the Shire to work for a couple of days, they are still tourists in that area. They have an abode, they live somewhere else. They're not living in this facility on a permanent basis. And so that's why I use the words primarily as a tourism facility, because that is what has been proposed. There is also a cafe component where local people might be able to use it, and we wouldn't normally describe that as tourism.
Okay, thank you.
You. Just one further question then. If I look at the submission and I'm looking at the plan for the unit, which is on page 63 of the submission of And when I look at the configuration of those rooms, none of those rooms have the facility for internal kitchen. They've got a space for a little fridge and maybe a little sink or something, and then just a door outwards, which doesn't indicate to me that that is a tourist type facility. It's probably more workers' accommodation, if you like, and they would go elsewhere to have meals and so on. So I'm just curious, because all the other plans for the units all indicate towards tourism, families, kitchens, proper kitchens, and so on. Whereas this particular one that I'm looking at on page is it 62 or 63? 61. 61, sorry. That indicates to me quite clearly that that is workers' accommodation. So I'm just confused exactly what we are dealing with here today. The application is for tourism. The Shire has, the RDAP people have clarified that there is the component or the opportunity put in there for workers' accommodation. So, Mr. Chair, I'm just a bit confused exactly what we are intending to deal with today. Is it purely tourism, or is it tourism plus workers' accommodation?
Well, Mr. Foley has given his response. We can speak to the council a bit more about that, or council staff, but we can debate that in due course. Yes, Ms. Lapanti.
I have a question. It is really a follow-on from the previous question, and it is about your land use classification. It's about exactly the same matter. It deals with the 4-bedroom units, and I note that the Officers RA speaks about the land use classification, and it sets out why they have formed the view that in particular the 4-bedroom, those 20 cabins, in their view is a workforce accommodation rather than tourist development. Can you provide, or can the applicant provide the rationale for that layout and design component? I'm familiar with workforce accommodation, and that is very similar to workforce accommodation that I have seen in terms of plan layout. So can you speak to the rationale for that design, but specifically in relation to the comments that the RA has said that points to why the officers formed the view that those elements are workforce?
Yeah. So the layout is very similar, but I'll provide some points on this. The first is that because we are on the Mundabiddi Trail, and we went through a process of conferring with the wider community about weather and feedback, and there was a desire for people to have very because when they're on these tracks, they might be going in a group or a school group, and they have tents with them, but they want somewhere that they might have every couple of nights, be able to have a shower, be able to lock up their bike, go into town, have a cooked meal, or cook outside. They don't need, it's not a Margaret River on the foreshore type of accommodation. This is designed for the budget and the expectations of this particular area. If you have a look at where the car parking bays are to the accommodation, what we went through a process of, do we put a car bay or 2 car bays next to each one of these? And the position that we came to was that every building would be 150 metres. Yeah, it was 150 metres away from the designated car park for that particular area, and it was so that you didn't have people coming and going and disturbing. So if you pull up and you're in a vehicle and you're not in a bike, it's a short distance to get to your accommodation, and so that you're not overlooking car parking bays, you're overlooking a grassed area or the other buildings. But there is actually quite a good view across to the lake to the south. We don't have a mess hall in this proposal, so we have at the other facility we have a mess hall that opens at 4:30 in the morning. It's about 4:30 in the morning because people get there. The company that they're working for pays for everything. They all have meals together, a bus comes, collects them, they all go off. That's not what's proposed here. The cafe opens much later. If people are coming and are working in the area, well, they should be able to just stay. They are tourists. This is not a dedicated workforce accommodation. It's not for a particular project. It was genuinely intended to be a tourism facility.
Thank you. On that note, I note again in relation to your comments, the concerns you want to express about it not being workforce and primarily tourism. But I also note that you've not made any comment in relation to condition 3, which specifically flags those facilities, those 4 bedrooms as land use classification as workforce accommodation for a valid period of 15 years.
Yeah.
You're not indicating any comments or concerns in relation to that.
Because it doesn't make it different. The land use definition doesn't stop it from being a tourism land use. If you read the definition of workforce accommodation, it says primarily for the accommodation of workers engaged in construction, resource, agricultural or other industries on a temporary basis, and for associated catering, sporting, recreation facilities for those occupants and authorised visitors. We can work with that. It's not detrimental to the vision of the facility. If we get school groups that come through, that land use definition doesn't prevent the school from looking at all of those rooms. The key there is used primarily for the accommodation of workers engaged in all of those other industries. So it isn't seen as a prohibition on the vision, and the 15 years is not really considered to be an issue either. We'll come back in 14 years if it's working and apply for an extension or a change. This is intended to be a staged development that builds up over time as it becomes more popular, more people find out about it. Jeff can provide some more words to that, but it wasn't seen to be a major impediment to the overall vision.
That's my question at this point in time.
Okay, any other questions? I just have a query. Is this?
This question.
Oh, sorry, councillor. Yes, I didn't see your hand.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Just a question on page 5 of the submission, item 37. It is intended that the development will proceed in stages as demand develops over time, and it relates to car parking bays. I note in the submission that 242 bays are part of this proponent's project, when really the requirement's only for 190 odd. That being that, could I ask what will the staging of this project be? For example, how many of these parking bays would be included in the initial stage, in stage 1, and what would that stage be?
Do you have a staging plan?
We do not have a staging plan at this point, but it was intended that as we go through the process, we need to work out the big issue for us is, from a cost perspective, is getting the intersection with the Coalfields Highway approved and constructed. That is obviously number one. That is stage 1. Stage 2 is we have the existing building, which is proposed to turn into a cafe, and the caravan component, and the maintenance sheds that are proposed on the plan. And then moving through is the loop road that runs through the accommodation buildings itself. So at a very high level, that's the that's the plan. What we were concerned about is that we need to build all of the car parking bays, all of the driveways, when we don't have the demand there at the moment,
Okay,
right from day one.
thank you. Does that answer your question, councillor?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. The intersection works, they're putting slip lanes. Is it proposed to lower that road as well?
Yeah, so there's a
Sorry, I noticed the plan shows cut in that area, so I'm assuming, and to improve the sight lines where you sort of lose view of vehicles,
yes.
it is proposed to cut.
Yeah, so particularly on the when you're heading towards Collie, so
The eastern side.
on the eastern side, there is a cut, particularly on the left-hand side of the road, because the way that the hill drops off,
Yeah.
and so the intention in the diagrams that have been prepared and that main roads have been relatively happy with to date, indicate a cut, particularly on that left side, and building up a little bit on the right hand side, but not as much. And that's to ensure the big issue here is your what they call a sight stopping distance.
Yeah.
So I think they need 250 meters if we're at the current speed, and that's why in coordination with the turning lane, there is also a cut component, so that the existing vegetation, which comes very close to the road line, pulls back ever so slightly to improve the sight lines through the area.
Okay, and the use of the accommodation for workforce, motels in the country areas are generally used for workers' accommodation. Is that correct?
Yeah, and so this is the whether it doesn't from a definition perspective, it doesn't make it different. If you're visiting the area, whether you're there for work or you're there to go to a winery, it's still a tourist.
Yeah.
It's only the difference. What I think the Shire were trying to pick up with workforce accommodation in their policy is where you have major infrastructure projects or a particular power plant that is going through a regeneration or construction process. And the town has historically had, and this is why the other facility started up, it was originally a construction camp for one of the power stations. And they have a surge workforce. They might get 800 people that come in and they're there for 9 months solid. That's not what we're dealing with here.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Sorry, one further
If
question.
you have another one from Member LaFanti.
My question relates to your request for condition changes, and condition 16 is requested to be modified. It actually relates to the exemption for the treatment of sewage. And in it, you have asked for additional wording to be put into that condition.
Mm-hmm.
My query relates to what sort of early works are you talking about that would, and what of those early works would actually require a building permit? The ones you refer to talk about site works associated with the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
What are you concerned about context?
What I was concerned about was if you read the existing condition as it is, any building permit would require your application. And so if we're staging the development, it would be that only those buildings, like there's a couple of maintenance sheds and the like, which probably wouldn't need a toilet. But the concern was, well, if we're, the first bit might be to put one of those sheds up, does it actually need a toilet? And then we get stuck in this technical issue where under the Building Act, it says that if you're not complying with all the conditions of approval, then the Shire can't issue a building permit. And then we have to come back and seek an amendment to the wording to say, well, you don't need septic application for this particular bit. There's no intention to get around the requirements. It is a requirement under the health legislation anyway. Every time that you have any toilet, you need this in place, and we've gone through a big exercise. We've got one of the biggest standalone systems at the other facility that Jeff operates, and we've gone through a very big grey water wastewater process on that side. So we're very aware of it, but you do get caught out that if it says that prior to a building permit, you need this. Well, if you don't need this, then it was just massaging the wording so that there was flexibility to cater for the staging of the development.
Thank you.
Yeah, just in regard to that, forward works would require a building permit, wouldn't they?
It depends on, again, the approach of the Shire, but you should have a building permit even for earthworks if it's associated with a building. So just for a road itself, probably not, but for any of the bulk earthworks, you would need a building permit.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of the presenters? Yes, Councillor.
Yes, look, just at this point, I'm not sure whether they're for Mr. Foley or for later. I'm not a planner, so I don't know how all this comes together. But I do have a couple of other concerns with the site layout and the setbacks and that sort of thing. At what point will we sort of talk about those? Do we need to talk about them now, or will that come later?
Well, if it's an issue regarding the development, we'll talk about that amongst ourselves. But if there's a particular question you've got in regard to what are your concerns about setbacks, for example?
Well, the concern really is that we do need to approve those setbacks, particularly the less than 100 metres from the Coalfields Highway and the other minor setback. We've got to deal with those. But I have a question around, there's 3,000 square metres set aside for the open space area, but I cannot see anything there whether any facilities are going to be provided. If there's going to be a tourist development, are we talking about anything to do with putting in children's playgrounds and that sort of thing? I have a concern about that. I don't know whether that's now or whether that comes later, or it's not even relevant at this point.
Well, no, I mean, it's mentioned in the report, I think so. If you've got a question of the proponents as to when they're going to, or if they're going to put facilities in, please let us know.
Yeah, so the intention is to put in facilities as the development progresses. So, for example, in the caravan area, when we do the caravan area, the intention is to put a small playground within the open space area, which is central to those caravans. So if there are children that are there and they want to go and play soccer or kick a football, there's a nice grass area, there's a small playground that's there. We did have a talk about the potential down the line for doing like a BMX pump track and the like, but we didn't think that it was necessary to put it in these plans now because that's a later bit. If you have a look at the layout of the facility, so with the overall site plan, it does pick up a couple of those playground locations. So there's one central to the caravan area. There's one adjacent to kind of the rec room and potential swimming pool piece. And then down near the cafe, there's no dedicated playground that's been identified there, but those little green boxes that are shown next to the building were intended to be garden beds or vegetable garden type of layout with a nice grassed area out in front that could be used for outside seating, putting a picnic blanket down and the like, with the view down the valley.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And I do have one more, which to me is very important. When I look at the site layout and I see those potential 50 caravan bays right down to the south of the property, by that unfenced lake, I just have a concern. What's the rationale for putting those down there with the potential for children to be around a lake, and it's within fair proximity to the river as well? I just have a concern about that. There doesn't seem to be any intent to fence off that lake area, which just leaves it open to anybody, any children coming from those 50 caravan park sites. It's a concern.
Is there a question there, councillor?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Are they going to fence it? That's my concern.
Yes, can I have an answer to that?
Yeah, so that area down near the lake was not a caravan area that's identified as the camping, dedicated camping spot. And no, at this stage, there wasn't an intention to fence the lake, but we'll take it on notice. I don't think we'd actually, we hadn't thought that through yet, but we'll certainly take it on notice, councillor.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
No.
If not, then we will now thank the presenters and for your presentation. And now we'll go to the council staff from the Shire of Collie, David Quelch, and Alex is down at the Shire office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, David, do you want to make any comment on some of the questions and answers that we've had to date, or are you happy just to go straight into questions from the panel?
I think just go straight to questions, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Member Lafanti.
I'd be interested in hearing your response or comments in relation to the applicant's request for condition changes.
Oh, yes, so there were a number of requests. I don't know if we want to go through each one.
That would be great. Yes, thank you. I'm interested in knowing what Shire's position is.
Bring it up here. So I think the first one is here. So it's just clarification about condition 3. So I don't think there's been any request to change condition 3.
No.
Condition 4, vegetation survey. So the referral comments back from Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions expressed the requirement for a survey. They did not have any specific conditions requesting a survey, but thought it was prudent to have a condition that required that prior to any vegetation clearing occurring, noting that there may be remnant vegetation, I think it's black cockatoo habitat, etc. So before any vegetation removal occurs, need to just point out exactly what needs to be protected within that area where the vegetation will be removed for the road construction.
So just on that, I'll ask the question while you're speaking, if I may,
Yes.
rather than having to go back to it. Native vegetation clearing has controls under legislation.
That's right.
Are you concerned that the deletion or requested deletion of the condition would have any impacts given or any lack of compliance with those obligations under other legislation? Is because it sits between the two elements.
Yeah, sure. No, good question. I think that, you know, in the comments received back from the applicant, they've expressed a willingness to undertake that survey. So I guess, you know, we can trust that the applicant will do that. I think the purpose of the condition is just to ensure that that does happen. Also agreeing that perhaps we are stepping into other sets of legislation where there is a requirement for vegetation removal, clearing permits, etc. So, you know, obviously open to the judgment of the panel to decide whether or not that condition should stay or not. I think as a local government, we do tend to be quite conservative sometimes when it comes to conditions. We just want to make sure that it's understood and there is that requirement. If it's better placed as a footnote or advice note, then we wouldn't object to that either.
Thank you. Would you like to continue with the other conditions?
So that was.
Sorry, I'll just stop in there. You do have an advice note saying that they've got to comply with the Environment Protection Act for clearing.
Yeah, that's right. It's just not specific about a survey, that's all. So that was,
Sorry if I may, it's Alex here from the Shire for Collie. Principal reason for that condition remaining in place is that as part of the road construction and approval to construct a road on a Shire reserve, they will be removing trees and vegetation from land under the control of the Shire, and any breaches of clearing requirements will and or the removal of vegetation have the potential of falling back on the Shire as the landowner, and that's the principal reason for that condition. So they are proposing access through a Shire reserve. That Shire reserve, as you can see through the aerial photos, is substantially vegetated, and we see it as critical that the Shire can confirm that all statutory requirements and required vegetation to be protected is protected to prevent a potential compliance matter arising for which the Shire would be potentially jointly responsible.
Okay, thank you. We'll proceed to the next.
moving on. So the next condition is condition 5, which relates to detailed engineering drawings for the road construction of the intersection. So that condition.
So they're seeking the request for that condition is just the last line to do with the all construction, upgrading and maintenance. They're asking for that last
That's right. So
line to be removed.
So as part of this application, obviously there's construction of the intersection, which is the main roads management issue, I guess. And the service road or local government road, which is currently unconstructed, will need to be constructed. So from a Shire perspective, we just want to make sure that the Shire is not left with the costs of not so much constructing the road, but maintaining the road in perpetuity. So we just want to make sure that that's tied into the approval and is understood. Now, whether that is covered by another condition within the list of conditions, we can explore that, I guess. But again, we're just trying to make sure that that's covered.
So if you keep going, there is a further condition. They've spelled out some of those costs. I'll be interested in how you see that against what you've just said.
Okay.
In this condition.
If I can just add there for the panel to look, in this particular instance, the road is only being constructed for the sole applicant. There are no other users of that road, and the Shire would not construct a road or give consent for the use of the reserve and the road to be constructed. So it needs to be, I guess, made clear to the applicant in discussions with the CEO of the Shire. We will not provide consent for a road to be constructed in that reserve unless an enforceable agreement is entered into between the applicant and the Shire around all future maintenance costs for the road. So that just needs to be made clear. Whether or not it needs to be picked up in a planning condition, the applicant just needs to be clear on that the Shire will not be granting consent for the use of the reserve unless there is a binding agreement to that effect in place.
Just on that one for both of you, for either to respond to, the applicant refers to condition 23 with some alternate wording, specifically in relation to the agreement, the legal agreement. Does that cover the concerns that you were just raising, Alex, or is this insufficient in your consideration in relation to what you've just raised with us?
I would suggest it's insufficient. So obviously it can be dealt with outside of the planning approval, but we just wanted to make it very, very clear for the applicant, given that access is a critical component, and without access, obviously the development will require substantive changes. So yeah, so from a Shire's point of view, we would suggest the recommended changes at this stage are insufficient.
Sorry, the recommended changes are?
Insufficient. At this stage they would be insufficient. We need independent, separate legal advice from a Shire point of view.
Thank you. If you'd like to continue, or either of you would like to continue in relation to those condition changes sought.
So that was condition number 5. Scrolling down. So condition 8, rewording of condition 8. Prior to lodging application of building permit.
Sorry, that was condition 3.
So this seems to be quite related to the previous condition. Prior to lodging an application for a building permit, the owner must enter an agreement with the Shire Collie to construct and thereafter maintain at full cost of the owner occupy the road, providing vehicle access from intersection inclusive of the intersection with Crawford Road and entry to the subject site. So the applicant stated Crawford Road is a state road. The road is currently coded from between that. So I guess the construction of the actual intersection onto the main road, Coalfield Road, that is obviously main roads jurisdiction. The agreement is specifically in relation to the service road, local government road. So we agree with that. So the applicant suggested rewording prior to lodgement of an application for a building permit, the owner must enter a legal agreement with the Shire of Collie to provide for the construction of a new intersection between Colville Road and the access road serving the development, construction and ongoing maintenance of the service road servicing the development between the main driveway and the development intersection with Colville Road, and no construction or maintenance costs arising from points A and B are to be borne by the Shire of Collie. So I guess the conditions are similar in terms of what the intent is. It's just a question of how these conditions can be enforced. And
but in terms of the wording, it specifically relates to the access road, not Coalfield Road.
Yeah.
Are you happy with the wording suggested by the applicant?
Yeah, I think as long as we're covering the fact that the service road is constructed and the Shire's not going to be held responsible for ongoing costs.
Well, that's
construction and
seems to
maintenance.
be what it's saying.
I'll defer to Alex. Alex, are you satisfied with the wording of that condition?
Yeah, I think that's okay.
As proposed.
Just to that condition, yeah.
Thanks, Alex. David.
Okay.
Thank you.
Scrolling down. So condition 16. So this is a wastewater condition. Alex, look, given your environmental health background, I might defer this to yourself.
Yeah, so we wouldn't support any change to that condition. It doesn't require them to construct the apparatus. It simply requires them to lodge an application with the Department of Health for approval for the apparatus. We would suggest it's critical to know where that apparatus is going before building work start on the site. So to ensure that the apparatus can be appropriately located sited within the site, given that it will be substantive in nature and require, set approvals outside of the Department of Health as well and referral. We strongly believe that it should be submitted prior to application so that we know the location and size of the apparatus and where it's going to be. We have no issues with potentially the use of temporary toilets. So again, we're not asked to construct it. We're simply asking them to submit an application to the Department of Health so that all subsequent kind of considerations can be considered, knowing the location of the size of the system on the site.
Can't hear you.
You just dropped out.
Yeah, we got you now. Thank you.
No, we've just dropped off. Sorry.
Um,
Just hold on, Jane.
Yep.
Technologies.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that, Alex. Mike, I just have a question that the applicants for you. Is it proposed to have one apparatus through the whole system or a number of them?
At the moment, a number of them.
So, Alex, would that tend to give weight to the fact that they would like the condition changed if they're going to have a number of them throughout?
No, because any system over 540 litres, which is effectively, a residential size system, requires approval of the Department of Health. And again, we need to know the siting and location of those. If they're talking about having a number of systems, it actually probably simplifies it for them. But I would kind of also highlight that the applicant's current development has a significant issue with this matter. and has a system installed that's not fully approved by the Department of Health, and they're working with the Department of Health on that issue. We would suggest it's critical, and it has led to formal complaints coming through to the Shire about environmental contamination, which we've referred to the appropriate regulatory agency. So we see this issue as being a critical one, and depending on what they submit prior to lodgement, I guess would depend on, both the Shire's and the Department of Health's advice. We really do need to see where these systems are going to be located. If they're talking about separate systems, then it just needs to be considered in that context. It's also important, given that we have no indication of staging of this development, and it is possible, as I said, that not all the development gets constructed as the applicant has, by their own admission, indicated.
Okay, thank you. Proceed, David.
So moving on to the next condition. It's condition 25. So the applicant is recommending that condition 25 is deleted. So this goes back to the issue of past mining activity. So from a Shire perspective, from a statutory plan perspective, the site's within a special control area 3, which is Goldfields Basin. The application was referred to the Department of Mines. The refill comments come back stating that they had no concerns. However, the special control area 3 has a scheme requirement that notifications are placed on these approvals, and it doesn't really talk about whether or not that specific area of the development is located within the area that may or may not be affected by past mining activity. It's really merely saying that it's a notification to prospective owners that this property as a whole has past mining activity, and it's just alerting any prospective purchasers of that property. So this is a condition that we place on basically all our approvals that have a special control area 3. So I guess from a Shire perspective, we believe that should remain, but look, I'm happy for Alex if you want to make any comment on the special control area 3 condition, but it's typically a standard condition that we apply to all development approvals.
Okay, thank you. Move on then. Thanks. Condition 31, I think.
Sorry about that.
Basically, do you have a problem with staging of parking?
So with the station of parking, I think, again, look, so when the application was received by council, there's no staging plan provided. There was no discussion about staging of the development. So without that information, it's very difficult to make comment. From the Shire's perspective, what we don't want to occur is that the use commences operation, but adequate car parking is not provided for that development that's been approved. With this application, there's a number of different components to it. You've got the camping caravan sites, you've got the cabins, you've got the shop, the cafe, wellness studio as well. So that's kind of the background for.
I get that, but what does the wording? Is the wording of the proposed condition a problem for the Shire, in a sense that they're saying that if we do stage 1, we'll only provide the parking for stage 1 and so on, and it's all to be to the satisfaction of the Shire in any event?
So I'll just bring up the condition again. Apologies for that.
I mean, the council
condition 31, yeah. So currently 242 car spaces been provided and maintained to the satisfaction of responsible authority, and proposal 242 on base inclusive.
The proposal, as I read from the applicant, is intended to add wording to the end of that condition that would enable consideration of staging to the satisfaction.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess, we don't know how the development will be staged, so we're there's a bit of a blank there in terms of making a decision about that condition, because we don't really know the nature of the staging of the process of the project. So I think.
Okay, well, if you can't
Yeah.
accepted. You're saying that this condition as originally stated should be maintained?
Look, I could understand if it was staged and you only had X number of cabins constructed, then you would only provide X number of car spaces that relate to that cabin component.
Okay.
I
think that's
Can I
right.
Sorry, Alex, if I maybe propose something for the DAP panel to consider. I think it would be probably okay to amend that if it kind of mentioned that, like, if a subsequent staging plan is approved by the Shire to that effect, so we can actually understand the interlinks and what's required. So if there was some way for that condition to be amended that allowed us to formally approve a staging plan, so we can work out what's in and what's out, I think that would be okay. The difficulty, I think, of having it some other way is really trying to get an understanding of how holistically it needs to come together, particularly with refuge collection, potentially entry and exit of buses, and caravans and slow moving vehicles, high pedestrian numbers. I think we just need to see it in its be able to see it and approve it, rather than just saying to the satisfaction of the city, because that's kind of, to a degree, that might mean we're seeing it post rather than pre.
Okay, thank you.
So that's all the conditions.
That's it. Okay.
If there's any other questions, happy to answer those.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Nima, yes, you have a question.
Yes, to the Shire officers. If you could refer, my comment relates to drinking water. On page 29 of the RA report, however, it's page, I think, 24, the paragraph just above landscaping, it says here that the application was referred to Department of Health, who commented that they needed to go through a certain process, referred to DEWA and recommend a condition of approval stating the proponent is to secure a long-term water supply, etc. I can't seem to pick that up anywhere in the conditions and advisory notes.
So that's an interesting point. Alex and myself did discuss this particular matter in terms of the conditions.
Mm-hmm.
I think the conclusion out of that discussion was that they will have to get a water supply one way or another, and that would need to be dealt with the Water Corporation, which again is kind of slightly laying outside of our legislative, I guess, the framework, statutory planning framework, and going into the set of legislation. The comments from the Water Corporation suggested that they will need to connect into the water supply on the opposite side of the highway, Oldridge Road. So that will be an expense to the applicant, of course.
My main thing is you're quite happy that it is not actually in the condition or advisory notes. You are content with that. The Shire is comfortable with that.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit similar to the vegetation clearing in the survey condition, in relation to vegetation clearing, where that's probably more of a responsibility of legislation when it comes to vegetation clearing, and also again with the provision of services. Generally, that's a matter dealt with between the applicant owner and the Water Corporation in this case. So we did actually initially have a condition that required the connection to drinking potable water supply, but we just felt that was kind of leading into a different set of legislation.
Okay, no, thank you. That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you very much.
If it helps, if it didn't occur, there are statutory mechanisms to enforce the provision of suitable drinking water. So if the applicant didn't arrange a suitable connection or supply, there are statutory provisions available to the Shire and to the Department of Health to enforce and require that. So it's a case of, if they don't do it, there are statutory provisions and legislative requirements for it to be provided, so it can be otherwise enforced.
Okay, all right, thank you. No, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further questions?
I have a further question.
Yes.
I'm interested in the Shire's comments to the earlier discussion we had in relation to the land use.
Yes.
If you'd like to provide your response in relation to those comments.
Yes. So when we first received the application, the camping kitchen building was just shown on the site plan. It was quite a large rectangular structure, but there were no floor plans or no elevation plans. So it just kind of raised our eyebrows a little bit. Was that structure going to be used as a wet mess and therefore act to serve the function that would normally be served in workforce accommodation? So further information request was sent out. The response we got back was that the plan was changed, but it was commentary that it's just an indicative floor layout. So that lack of commitment to the design and floor plan of that structure just, I guess, was one question mark we had. The other question mark in relates to the actual floor plan for the 4-bedroom cabins. Now, in the response to the request for further information, the applicant has stated that that there were cooking facilities or there was a kitchenette. When you look at the actual floor plan for the 4-bedroom units, it would be very difficult to argue that what's provided is a kitchenette. So again, there's this question mark about the land use category, which whether or not this particular development incorporated workforce accommodation. And also there is, the same company does own a workforce tourist development accommodation, operates workforce tourist accommodation development within the Shire. I've actually been out there. I've been inside the apartments or inside the cabins, and it has a very similar look and feel about it. So that's why we've flagged this particular issue of workforce accommodation, and we wanted this issue out in the open so that it can be discussed now and not becoming
bedroom blocks of units which sit towards the front of the site.
That's right.
On that basis, and the information contained in the RA, the Shire supports the discretionary use of workforce accommodation in the arrangement that they have. So the layout and floor concerns that you have raised, are they essentially addressed from the Shire's perspective through condition?
Yeah, so
3?
So workforce accommodation is a DU, so it is a permissible use in the rural zone.
Yeah.
Now, the I guess unique aspect of our scheme, local planning scheme for the Shire of Collie, is that workforce accommodation can only be approved in the rural zone, so it cannot be approved in any other zone. So it would seem a bit unreasonable not to support that use, considering that's the only zone that can be considered. However, with Collie and with the predicted, like the transition phase that Collie's going to go through, and there's an expectation that over the next 10 years, let's say next 10 years, that there are going to be some substantial projects under construction. But once that 10-year period is completed, then it's expected that a lot of these construction projects will peter out and it will turn back to normal. So we recently adopted a local planning policy for workforce accommodation. And one of the key components of that local policy that's just been recently adopted is restricting the length of time, or the expiry time for workforce accommodation to 15 years. What the Shire doesn't want is that these rural locations are used kind of like ongoing in perpetuity for workforce accommodation to the detriment of the town centre, because ultimately, once there's a permanent workforce accommodation, we want them living in the town centre, contributing to the town centre and the town of Collie, economically and socially, and not with the rural areas being used as this kind of de facto kind of housing. That kind of answers your question.
Thank you. My second part to that same question is that the comments in the RA also refers to the layout or site configuration of those facilities or those rooms. Do you have any concern, and it appears from the recommendation, the RA, that the current layout and design and materials of the proposal, including those 4-bedroom units that I was referring to earlier, the Shire is comfortable with what you have presented to us?
We're comfortable to approve those cabins as workforce accommodation, but we don't want it to become a permanent long-term outcome.
So the design of those,
yes,
in terms of the material or the external finishes, particularly in the context of where they're located on the site, the Shire is comfortable with the overall design. That's what I'm reading.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
And my final question in that context, and it was raised earlier by one of the members, I note that you've got a setback provision in your scheme,
Right.
and the site has also captured by the SPP regarding road noise,
That's right.
which has a much greater distance. Do you have any are there any concerns that the applicant is able to achieve appropriate treatments on those buildings to manage the impact of noise for the nature of this development? And by that I'm saying, are you comfortable that the setback proposed is sufficient and the treatments are sufficient, or should there be a greater setback?
Yeah, so in terms of the actual setbacks, so under the rural zone, the requirement from a road frontage is 30 metres. So I think the nearest buildings are I think there's a storeroom. There's a couple of other structures that aren't used for accommodation purposes, but in terms of visibility from the main road, there is some screening, vegetation screening along Coalfield Road, so that provides a bit of a filtered view onto the property. And the subject site is slightly below the level of the road as well, so the structures won't, and the structures are quite modest in terms of their height and the like, so they won't really dominate, be highly visible from Coalfield Road if you're a passing motorist. So in terms of the visual impacts, we consider that to be acceptable. In terms of the road and rail noise, as part of the request for the information, we did request a noise assessment. That was I think one of the referral authorities also wanted a noise assessment. That was requested from the applicant as part of the further information request. The noise assessment was not provided, and therefore we have required a noise assessment to consider the threshold distances of the road and rail state planning policy. I would probably predict that the outcome will be that these particular cabins will have to be noise treated. There'll have to be some noise mitigation measures in their design, and whether it's the type of glazing that's used or the construction, to ensure that the noise levels aren't to such a level that it's going to disturb the sleeping patterns of the people who occupy the accommodation. So we do need a noise assessment, and a noise assessment will need to make recommendations as to how these cabins will be treated from noise perspective. I do know that there are houses on the opposite side of the main road that are also within the threshold distance. Obviously, just because they're existing doesn't mean that future development can just be approved as well, but that's just also something that should be understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, just one quick point to add from my point of view, Alex from Shire. I just want to kind of, I guess, highlight for panel members that there is no staging proposed in this development, and therefore we consider kind of, I guess, the recommendations and conditions outlined in the RDAP to be essential, particularly given that we could see that 4-unit development built first, and there's no necessary guarantee that that the rest of the development will roll out. And so therefore we think it is critical that condition around the time limit remain, and to ensure that if that is the only stage of the development that does get constructed, potentially along with the cafe, that the applicant is required to reapply for approval at the expiry of that time limit. We think the Shire's been taken quite a reasonable approach in starting the clock on the time limit ticking from occupation rather than from date of approval, which we think provides an adequate period of return for the applicant in terms of investment, but also ensures that if depending on how the development continues, noting that again by the applicant's own admission, they tend to construct various stages and only expand depending on, I guess, demand and revenue. We think that the conditions as outlined are based on sound grounds, and we'd also probably highlight that some of the commentary around the use of the trails and the like, those people are probably unlikely to come by cars, and again when we look at the total number of car parks provided, it very much does lend itself to a situation where the vast bulk of the people visiting that site will be drive in, drive out, otherwise there would not be that amount of car bays. And I think the other element that is important to note that again, they've got buses there, and again, the accommodation of the number of bus bays they have and spaces is probably again atypical of an indication of some form of workforce accommodation being considered. And the Shire certainly doesn't want to end up in a situation where there is, I guess, a compliance discussion about whether they are I guess, crossing the line in terms of being predominantly tourism or predominantly workforce accommodation. We think the conditions and recommendation as outlined, I guess, balance those competing elements.
Okay, thank you, Alex.
Just a question to Alex.
Yes.
Alex, thank you for that. Would you want, from the Shire's perspective, to have a development staging plan to be provided for your consideration? Is that what you're expecting?
It certainly would be our preference, yes.
Okay. So some sort of thing like a development staging plan to be provided to the satisfaction and approval of the Shire of Collie, incorporating things like your parking, your access, the development itself, or the stages of development.
Because it has been very hard to assess some of the elements. If you look at the total numbers of potential visitors there, the recreation facilities, including some of the camp kitchens and other elements, don't appear to be sufficient for the total number of people that could be accommodated on that site at any one time. But again, it's been difficult because we understand and have always understood that the applicant tends to stage it. And so this has been this balancing act around how we achieve, I guess, a positive outcome.
And just on that specifically, if the panel put such a condition on, what would be the timing of it for you? Would it be prior to building permit, prior to any works on site? I mean, what would your expectation be for such a document?
I think prior to building permit would be probably, the right time. We wouldn't be opposed to, say, for example, some preliminary site works occurring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry,
all right.
My questions.
If there's no further questions of the Shire, then we'll move into the discussion on the application itself. In order that we can do so, I would be seeking a mover and seconder for the recommendation as listed in the report. Do I have a mover?
Is it moved? Is there a mover?
Moved Member Lafanti. Do I have a seconder? Member Premji. Thank you. Member Lafanti.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody who has provided the material today. And that has been provided for me, has been very beneficial for me. I am supportive of the proposal. I am satisfied that the land use is as provided, and I am noting that it does incorporate workforce accommodation. Lots of discussion has occurred today in relation to the workforce accommodation or the ability to do it, to use it. And I would agree with comments that have been made by both parties, but I also agree that workforce accommodation is typically a regular occurrence and a regular movement of people to and from the site, quite often the same people occurring in shifts. So it is somewhat different in my view than the way tourism uses facilities which are fairly infrequent. So I agree with the range of uses that are proposed on the site, and I think that the design of the proposal is appropriate. The materials and finishes are appropriate. I note that one of the package of plans that we have has been deleted. It's referenced in the condition as well, that there's one particular set of plans, which is the camp kitchen, and the general layout of plans has been excluded. And I see that the RA recommendation incorporates clearly which plans relate to this development approval. In terms of the layout of the proposal, I'm comfortable that the mixed way the site has been laid out, which splits various activities into nodes on the site, is appropriate. I like the incorporation of the farm shop and the manner in which the proposal shows that's to be laid out. I'm satisfied that the access point to the site has been appropriately considered by both Shire and Main Roads, and that the inclusion of slip lanes, the provision of slip lanes to the site, appropriately address issues of movement to the site. I'm also satisfied that the proposal, in terms of its impacts on the surrounding area, create minimal impacts, and that those have been appropriately addressed on the site itself. At this juncture, I would, however, like to move some condition changes, if I may,
Yes.
amendments.
Amendment number 1.
My amendment 1 is to delete condition 4. Having listened to, if I have a second, I'll speak to it.
Do I have a seconder to delete condition 4? Yes, Member Premji.
My reasoning to delete this condition is I agree with the comments that have been provided by both the Shire and the applicant that this is an obligation that relates to the applicant's provision of statutory provisions in relation to fauna and flora, and these are covered in a variety of legislations, not just in how we deal with them from a planning perspective, but there are other stricter controls in relation to that. Now, I also, and so therefore I'm satisfied that the applicant has obligations under a variety of legislation, and that our determination does not alter those obligations for the applicant. So I'm comfortable to delete condition 4.
Second, Member Premji, you wish to make a comment? Can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I agree. I think there's other conditions there that already captures that, so I'm happy with it to be deleted.
Thank you. Any other member wish to speak for or against the amendment? Councillors? If not,
The only comment I would make that I've taken notice of the point 10 in the submission from Mr. Foley, that this is not generally accepted by the State Administrative Tribunal, so I think we've got to be guided by that.
okay, thank you. If there's no further comment, I support the amendment. So would you like to write a reply, Member?
No.
Lafanti? If not, I'll put the amendment to a vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Amendment number 2, Member Lafanti.
I want to move amendment 2, and I'm moving down to condition 8. This is about road construction, and there is language that has been provided in relation to condition 8. We've had some discussion through today's meeting, and I am seeking to move the amendment rewording using the applicant's wording, which is contained in its
Point 23 in his...
under condition 8. Yeah, point 23 under condition 8.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Member Premji, thank you.
My reasoning for that is that I agree with comments that have been made that it's appropriate that a legal agreement be entered into in relation to the new construction and the ongoing service road. And I think this language has been clearer and provides that certainty in relation to that particular element.
Thank you, Member Premji.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
Okay, I agree as well. If any other member wishes to speak for or against? If not, write a reply?
No.
No? All right, I'll put the amendment to a vote. All in favour? Yes, that's unanimous.
In relation to, sorry, I'm just going back to my notes.
Section 16.
No, I'm modifying that at this point in time. I want to go to condition. I suppose I essentially want to add a new. I want to go to a new condition. Actually, I want to add a new condition as my next amendment.
Okay, amendment number 3.
I don't know what number it would be, but I'm proposing a new condition. 32, I think it will become. This, I suppose, in some ways relates to a lot of the conversation we've had regarding both the sewerage matter as well as the parking, and it really, from my perspective, moves towards a comprehensive development staging plan. So my built form, as well as built form, parking, access, loading, circulation, and circulation infrastructure.
We have a seconder for that. Yes, Member Premji.
Yes, I do agree with that. I think the Shire officers have commented quite a few times that it has been a bit difficult for them to assess this particular development because they haven't been given a staged plan. And some of their conditions, I think that's why the applicant has come back and has objected, because they are thinking staged, but the conditions are such that it applies to the entire development, and it could be not cost-wise, it would not be very good for the applicant. So yes, I do agree. I think we do need a condition like this. Thank you.
Any other members wish to speak to the item?
Yes, I would like to just comment that, yes, I think this is the roadmap to the whole thing. I think it's critical to the whole project. We need to know just in what direction this whole project is proceeding. So I support the motion. Yeah.
I'd just like to say that it adds clarity to the whole situation, and you know, it's a sensible step, I believe.
Okay, I will speak against the item in the sense that it's, I think we have to be careful about the applicants submitting a staging plan to the satisfaction of the Shire, and then if they want to change it, they've got to go through and reapply. Or do they, can we have some words in it that if it's amended at any time it's to the satisfaction of the council? Because we don't want to lock them into a staging plan that economic conditions may mean that they'll move from one stage to another. Is the condition flexible enough to allow for that?
I'm happy to add the words that to the satisfaction, approval and as amended to the satisfaction of, I'm happy to include the words as amended to the satisfaction of the Shire. The intention for me of this condition is that a number of elements we've discussed today talk about a refinement of some of those. The Shire is agreement that it could occur, but they just don't have the information. So the intention here is to get a stage plan from the developer. That's what they intend to do in any case, as they've indicated today. And this is not meant to burden either party. So I'm more than happy to have language in here that actually provides the opportunity for a stage plan to be given to the Shire, and for any amendments to be considered further along the journey of this implementation, again, in consultation with the Shire.
So could I have the wording again?
So I have to rethink it now. So prior to a building permit, a development staging plan to be provided to the Shire, to be provided to the satisfaction of the Shire, or as amended. Doesn't, unless the officers have got a better language for me.
Thinking clarity.
Yeah. My intention, you've heard what my intention is on the...
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the staging plan. It's just the wording of it. I think that it has to be a little bit flexible so that we're not introducing a condition that requires a fresh development application just to change the structure.
Okay, I've got the wording. So for everybody who's listening, I'm suggesting the language is prior to a building permit, a development staging plan be provided and as amended, or as amended, sorry, or as amended to the satisfaction and approval of
between the Shire and the applicant.
Sorry, councillors, we can hear your discussion if you wouldn't.
Sorry.
So the language would be prior to a building permit, prior to a building permit, a development staging plan be provided or as amended to the satisfaction and approval of the Shire of Collie, incorporating the buildings, parking, access, loading and circulation infrastructure.
Okay, well, that, to me, that's better. I'll withdraw my objection. So, right of reply?
I think I've given it.
Okay, I'll put it to a vote. Everyone in favour? Thank you. Member Lafanti, you want to wish to speak further?
No, I have no further comments. I'm comfortable with the proposal as already indicated. I'm satisfied that the matters of concern have been appropriately addressed and the incorporation of some condition changes provides clarity for the elements of concern.
Thank you. Member Premjer, seconder?
No, nothing further to say. Thank you. I'm happy.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Any other members wish to speak to the item? No? Well, I'll just give my views, and I think that the proposed development is one that I think if it goes according to plan, will be a fantastic asset to the town, both from a tourist development and other accommodation uses. I'm familiar with motels in country areas that planted right along heavy vehicle routes, and the rooms are not much bigger than that provided in Building 4, and it's used by a variety of people, tourists and people attending weddings at the town, or tradies that are sent down to the town to fix up whatever manner of things. They're not necessarily tied up with major projects. So I think that from a use point of view, the development has a range of uses, and I think that it's one which has had a good, thorough assessment through the Responsible Authority report. And yes, there were some queries about it that people have raised, and quite rightly. But at the end of the day, the issues that have been identified by the public authorities and submissions from the public have, in my opinion, been addressed, especially the intersection. When I looked at the photo that was provided, I could understand some of the concerns that are raised by members of the public in regard to the sight lines, but as the proponents and the council are aware, there's a major roadworks component of this development. It won't be cheap either, I can imagine, to lower the road to increase the sight distances. So from a safety point of view, I'm satisfied with the intersection change proposed. In terms of safety issues regarding the camping ground and the lake, I think that there are many, many instances around Western Australia of water bodies that are unfenced, and whilst it's tragic if anything untoward occurs, it's a bit hard to make people fence off entire lakes. To I think a prudent operator would want to put up a significant amount of signage, and parents should take care with kids that are in the area. So at the end of the day, I think the proposal is one that is appropriate. It's been thoroughly assessed, and I'm supporting it. That being the case, I'll put it back to Member Fancy.
Thank you. My only response is in support of the proposal. I note that the applicant has requested a series of changes. In relation to the proposal, I'm satisfied that the key issues relating to the road construction, particularly around the works, have been identified. And the other key issue from my perspective is the ability to facilitate a stage plan, which from my understanding in today's meeting, both the Shire and the applicant want to achieve. And no doubt there will be a pathway forward for a very significant development that is beneficial to the Shire, its community, and to local tourism in the area.
Thank you. That being the case, I'll put the recommendation as amended to a vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda, item 4, Form 2 DAP applications. We have none. Item 5, SAT reconsiderations. There are none. I'd like to thank Councillors Mifflin and Italiano for your attendance and participation, and also for the presenters, the proponents, and council staff for answering our queries. Thank you very much, and we'll now take a short break as we move into the Shire of Gingin application. Thank you. So,
Good time.
well, welcome everybody back to part C of the development assessment panel meeting today for the Shire of Gingin, and I welcome Councillors Hine and Balcom to the meeting. And for this part of the meeting, I remind everyone that it's being run in accordance with DAP standing orders, and panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. Item 1, declaration of due consideration. Panel members, can you indicate by show of hands that you're familiar with all the documentation contained within Part C of the agenda and Part C related information? Thank you, that's unanimous. Disclosures of interest. Local government members, was this application considered at a briefing or a council meeting prior to this? No? Thank you. Moving on then, we'll move on to the application for Lot 1 Brand Highway, Magumba Road West, Red Gully, proposed energy infrastructure, battery energy storage system. We have two presenters on this item today, Mr. Neil Finney from BLT Energy. I thought I said it wrong, actually. Bacon, lettuce and tomato. But I transposed it incorrectly. BLT Energy, and Mr. Watson from Planning Solutions. Mr. Finney, would you like to make your presentation?
Yes, please.
Mostly 3 minutes.
Thanks so much, Chair. Thanks so much to the panel and the Shire for your time today. I'm Neil Finney, Director of Project and Procurement at BLT Energy. BLT Energy was founded 3.5 years ago, and we're a team of local Perth people with significant local, interstate and international power sector development and operation experience. We intend to build and operate Red Gully BESS, be a part of the local community for the long term. The project on the agenda today is a significant project for WA's clean energy transition and complements the state's investment in Clean Energy Link North, being sited just over 1 kilometre away from the new Western Power Regans terminal, which is currently well advanced in its construction. So pause for a second, we do have a slide.
If you wish to show that, yes, you've arranged for that.
Just want to give you a moment.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Slide 2 would be great, thanks.
Okay.
Let's continue on. As I mentioned, Western Power Regans Terminal, which is a new build, is currently well advanced in its construction, can be seen in the background in the right-hand corner. This completely new terminal acts as a gateway for energy, connecting Perth to intermittent renewable generation in the north. Significant effort, resources, time and attention has been devoted to appropriate site selection for Red Gully BESS. We have demonstrated our commitment, having been a landowner and a ratepayer in the Shire of Gingin since February 2024, and have been building those positive community relationships with neighbours, who we find are all busy people running their businesses on the land. Recently, our project is naturally gaining more attention at this stage of development, and just 6 weeks ago, we had the whole BLT team energy on hand to conduct a couple of community drop-in sessions in the town of Gingin. We've received very warm, positive response to that. We met with stakeholders such as Western Power, Main Roads WA, APA and AGIG, and have incorporated their helpful feedback into our plans. In addition, we have engaged a highly capable team of local expert consultants in preparation of the DA and the other development streams that we're working on. And some of those experts are joining us online today, able to answer any questions as needed. BLT Energy is registered as a market participant with the Australian Energy Market Operator, and Red Gully BESS is designated as a connection-ready critical project with Western Power's critical project framework, and is progressing through technical grid studies. Securing planning approval will allow us to progress towards detailed design, targeting commissioning in 2028-2029. We do kindly seek development approval of the agenda item before you today, and welcome the proposed conditions of approval as we look to develop responsibly for the long term. Finally, I'd like to thank the Shire for preparing a comprehensive RER, and we look forward to working with them through the phases of the project. And we intend to implement a meaningful community benefit scheme in the next phases of development to ensure that those results of our work are shared with the broader community for the long term. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Watson, if you'd like to make yours, we'll go to questions of both of you.
Thank you, presiding member and panel members and Shire staff. I'll also be speaking in support of the battery energy storage system on the corner of Brown Highway in Magumba Road West in Red Gully. Thank you, Neil, for your deputation. And I'd like to just make a couple of comments in addition to Neil's comments today about the robust assessment that's been undertaken and the analysis which we've incorporated into the development that has really informed the land use and development on the site. Firstly, I'd also like to thank the Shire's officers, James and Cass, for their thorough assessment of the application. I think that's really clear in the very detailed RAR that's in front of the panel today. We've been in close communication with the Shire now for a long period. That's also incorporated prior to lodgement of the application and during the assessment. We've worked closely with the Shire and that's included also analysis of the proposed conditions. We're supportive of the proposed RAR, and we just seek 2 minor modifications to advice notes, which I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on that. So the proposal in front of you today is for an 800 megawatt battery system, which will be an important energy storage, which will connect to the Southwest Interconnected System. The proposed development will play a significant role in future intermittent energy generation and satisfying the WA State Government's emissions reduction goals. This development has also been supported by a robust consultant team to further confirm the appropriateness of the proposal on the subject site. This has involved an environmental assessment by PGV, transport and traffic management by Transcool, bushfire considerations by Bushfire Prone Planning, and a detailed acoustic analysis by Lord George Acoustics. These consultants are also aligned, as Neil said, and able to answer any questions the panel may have. These assessments have also been reviewed by the Shire and also the relevant state government authorities and confirmed to be satisfactory or require minor modifications as part of detailed conditions. Also, from a planning consideration, this use and development will be located in close proximity to that Regent's terminal, which is being upgraded. And it really sets the scene of this emerging energy infrastructure, which is located close by to the site. This development also makes up only a small portion of the subject site, with the remaining 90% of the site still to be used for farming and bushland. The proposed BESS has also been designed to have minimal impact on the visual amenity. This has been done by locating the development back from the surrounding roads and neighbouring properties. The undulation of and significant vegetation on site has ensured that this site is largely not visible from the street. So in summary, the proposed battery energy storage system is an important piece of energy infrastructure, and we are supportive of the officer recommendation, and with Paul van der Mosel, Vladimir Baltic, Matt Nolan, Lord George Acoustics, Neil, Francis and Jackie, we're happy to answer any questions that the panel may have today.
Thank you very much. Panel members, I'll open up questions of the presenters, so either one. Yes, Member Premsley.
Yeah, just wanted to seek clarification. The 2 fire access roads that you have, are they gated or how will it be controlled so you don't get other people trying to come in, have a nice joyride and get to get to your best?
So currently those accesses are actually the main access to the farm. So
Yeah,
our
that's right.
proposal
Yeah.
is to only have them for emergency access only. So it'll be gated once this becomes operational.
Okay. And the other one was I just wanted to ask you to talk to your request of advice note modifications, in particular advice note 25.
Thank you. So first off, advice note 9 relates to net masts. This proposal is not a wind farm, so we're not proposing any net masts as part of this. So we feel that advice note's unnecessary. In relation to advice note 25, this is in relation to the draft renewable energy code that was released by the state by Department of Planning in December. That code at the moment is only specifically relating to wind farms, and it's in the intention of the state government to increase that out to batteries and solar farms and hydrogen processes. However, in its current form, there's no specific requirements applicable to battery energy storage systems. So our request is to purely have that consideration removed. I think there's suitable conditions within the development approval that are informing the final detailed design, and I think we just wanted to be very clear and certain that that impacts of any changes in the planning framework in the future do not require us to come back for further approvals and the like as part of any changes.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
Councillor Balco.
Councillor Balco, thank you.
My questions are regarding battery fire and emergency response. Can you clearly explain how a thermal runaway event would be detected and contained on site?
Sure, I'll take that one. Thanks for the question, member. It's a very important thing, bushfire safety and fire safety in general, not just for the facility, but also for the community, obviously. Thermal runaway is a condition where a battery cell reaches a certain temperature, a high temperature, and above that temperature, then that combustion is something which can continue and sustain itself. So with the nature of the facility here, it's a specific built containerized battery solution. What that means is basically there's a 24/7 monitoring system called a battery monitoring system, BMS, that takes into account or takes a measurement of voltages and currents and temperatures throughout the facility. So really on a small scale, each cell has a kind of monitoring system always operating 24/7. What this means is that those events are prevented is the first thing. So that those situations, monitoring happens over time. Anything which is out of parameter gets looked at and notified to operators immediately. In the case of a thermal runaway, we do have to plan for the worst. The containerized systems are designed at multiple levels to contain at every level. So at the cell level, if it's contained at the cell level, that's the first level. Next level is pack level. And then the next level after that is the container level. So at each level there's internal protections and firewalls to prevent thermal runaway from propagating through the system. So that means in the event of a worst case situation, a thermal runaway in one of the cells, that's contained. Absolute worst case is one container.
Okay, thank you. And just the other question, in the worst case fire scenario, how far could smoke or toxic off-gassing travel?
This one, probably for your turn.
Yeah, on the winds. The bushfire consultant, which we have online, if you...
Yes, we'll throw that to our bushfire consultant, who is...
Neil Stoney from Bushfire Planning.
Neil Stoney. Neil, are you available? I presume I'll just, while we're trying to get him.
Yes, jumped in.
There we are, thank you. Yeah, did you hear the question, Neil?
Yes, it was about smoke travel from a unit fire.
Yes.
Is that
Or
correct?
toxic gas in travel. So yeah.
Right. So that's from an asset fire, which is not specifically my field. I do have some knowledge on that, but I think your presenters may actually be more accurate. So from what information I have, we're talking about 60 meters for it to have a particulate that would be not hazardous, but certainly detectable. After that, it would disperse into the atmosphere. But again, that's not my field because we're talking asset fire. I work on bushfire. So I'm working on external impacts to the facility.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions?
Not at this time.
I just had a question in terms of monitoring. I presume if the link between the monitor and the facility breaks down, then emergency steps are taken to find out why.
Oh, absolutely. The facility is part of is connected to the Swiss grid. Part of that is redundancy requirements for communication. In that event, that is a major issue, and there would be things in place to shut down the facility. It does need to be interacting with the market at all times, 24/7.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions of the presenters? No. Yes, Councillor Balcom, you had another one.
Sorry, and will the development be working with local bushfire brigades to train them to how to respond to a best fire? Because there has been, it's fairly new in the sense of the problems or the dangers that it could occur if there's a bush. It is in a bushfire area. Gingin is well renowned for the fires that we have up at that top end of our shire, and while everything is in place to protect it as much as you can, and the community, I suppose, will the developers be working with our local brigades or our SESM to work out a plan on how they will be dealing with a fire if a fire occurs?
Absolutely, yes, that needs to be in place. That I think that's before use, obviously, but that's something that there's an opportunity there to engage with the local community. There's a bushfire aspect, local bushfire brigades, as well as DFES, etc. There does need to be a fair amount of work in education and engagement, and understanding the resources available, and making sure that the project is not a significant standalone burden.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, thank you for your presentation. We might come. Councillor Hines, sorry. Oh, there we go. Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, so my question was just also in relation to bushfire. I see you've got a 10-metre asset protection zone around each BESS unit, and it seems as though 10 metres around the perimeter. Will there be any other barrier or around the perimeter to prevent fire spread, or from bushfire, or from the BESS units themselves?
Probably defer to Neil Stoney online for that one.
Neil?
Yep. So no problem there. So the asset protection zone that we've applied would actually be about 25 metres. The 10 metres is non-vegetated. So that is to prevent any surface fire impact. So even if you have a low fire running through, it would hit the 10-metre buffer, and then nothing would pass through to actually contact the units. And it also works in the opposite direction. So if you have a fire occurring within the facility, then you don't have that impacting the vegetation beyond. So if you have an asset fire, what we've modelled previously is that you need around about 5 metre separation to avoid critical fluxes onto vegetation. In this case, we've got 10 metres before you'll have any vegetation at all to prevent ignition of a bushfire due to asset fire. And as I said, after that 10 metres is still asset protection zone standard.
Further question, just regarding the situation with a fire within one of the units. What's the procedure for treating a fire? Is water going to be suitable for? I see there is a substantial water supply for firefighting on site, but is that going to be the appropriate method of dealing with a fire in one of the BESS units?
So to deal with any fire on the site there needs to be a specific approach to each possibility. So whether it's an electrical unit or a battery unit. The provision of water there, according to the regulations, is important. However, whether that will be used directly on the particular cell and module and system in question is really up to a further discussion with the suppliers to make sure that the procedures for firefighting are followed according to supplier recommendation and procedures. So that's to be developed, and obviously talking to the previous question there from Councillor about the engagement with the local bushfire services is to make that knowledge well known, available, so that the appropriate measures are taken. So there is some talk of letting fires burn out, using water as a cooling on surrounding and nearby assets to prevent spread. So all those things will be taken into consideration and part of a detailed plan prior to use.
Okay. Further questions?
No.
If there are no further questions at this stage, I'll now invite the councillor. Sorry,
Councillor Hine here. I just noticed Mr. Stoney had his hand up. I thought he was.
Oh, there he is. Okay, he switched from one side to another.
I didn't want to interrupt. So the firefighting water supply is based on active cooling and bushfire response. So it seems like a very substantial water supply. That's correct. It's following Australian Standard 2419.1 for open yards. So that's where you've got combustible materials within an area, but not actually buildings per se. So in that case, we are running on it being calculated per yard area. This is a very large yard area. So we've got a quantity of, I think it's 576,000 litres preliminary. So the intention for the fire water is for active cooling of adjacent cabinets. So whether or not you use fire water on a cabinet that is on fire, that depends on the particular unit selected. So they'll have that in their safety information of what your firefighting response is, which would then be in the FESOG that you would give to the local fire brigades. But the amount that we've calculated is based on active cooling. So the calculation is 10 litres a second for 4 hours on however many hydrants it is that you need. So in this case, it would be 4 hydrants running simultaneously, dousing the nearby cabinets to make sure that they're not reaching unacceptable temperatures themselves due to adjacent fire. But the standard response may be for either burn out and watch it, or it may be that you apply water to it. If it is that you have to apply water to it, they've also included a detention basin for the water supply.
Okay, thank you.
And just on the previous comment on the bushfire brigades, in our risk report, there's a recommendation for engagement with the bushfire brigades prior to commissioning for them to come and have a look around the site. Continuing communication with the CFO, and also a production of a FESOG so that they have that available of the appropriate responses.
Thank you. Was it Councillor Balcombe?
Councillor Hine.
Oh, Councillor Hine again? Oh, I can't see our hands.
Thank you. Just in regard to water supply in general, I note that the water on site is for firefighting. Is there a requirement for water usage for the facility itself?
Thanks for the question. No, in operation, there's no requirement for operation of the BESS facility. However, there is some small requirement for potable water already in the conditions, I believe. That's just for any ongoing staff on site, which is minimal.
Okay, I did have another question, if that's okay.
Go ahead, yes.
I noticed there's between 80 and 150 estimated construction workers on site during the construction phase. Was there an intention to provide on-site accommodation for those workers during that construction?
Send them down to Collie.
I suppose a lot of the construction worker aspect is still being worked through. So the final battery types and who's going to be doing it, how much staff is still yet to be confirmed. So if there's any future, I suppose, accommodation or whatnot, that'll be looked at in the future. But the intent at this stage is to bring staff in by bus to do the work and whatnot, and that's what's been modelled in the traffic management and whatnot. So I think our intent at this stage is to use that model, but if it needs to be modified in the future, it will be looked at as part of a separate application.
Okay. Further questions? Yes,
just confirming that your TIS in its discussion referred to that, and I'm talking about the construction period, not the operational period, that obviously you need your permits for the roads, but there's no substantial road works, particularly on Brand Highway, necessary to accommodate those larger components of the works being transported from the ports.
Yeah, so this is probably different to a wind farm, for example. A lot of these can be just brought in by trucks that are standard 19 metre vehicles. There's going to be some larger vehicles that are going to be required, but that's a minority, I suppose, of the circumstance. So the road is built to a wide enough standard to enable the movement of those trucks. And I think there's also a condition in there that in the event that bigger trucks are needed, we're going to need to get our permit from main roads anyway, and work through that. But yeah, the majority of trucks are actually just 19 metre semi-trailers.
And my last question on that is that, according to your information, you've got a very small footprint within a much broader, a much bigger area. And the information we have is that grazing will continue to occur. Is that the case? It's going to continue.
That's correct. Cattle grazing, yes. Yep. And just on the previous point, if I might add, some of the aspects of the facilities have actually been designed to make sure the oversized, overmass components are not excessively large. There is different levels at which those OSOM shipments get more and more difficult in terms of size. So in terms of sizing things like transformers, that has been initially taken into account.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
No.
If not, thank you, presenters. We'll now start to come and take questions or make comments. As Panero from the Shire of Gingin. And sorry, of
James Bailey.
James Bailey. Yes, Kaz, so you to make any comment on any of the statements made to date by the presenters or flowing from the questions, or would you rather just go straight to questions?
Yeah, just regarding member blank. Shire member Balcom. The reference to in terms of whether the local fire emergency people will be made aware of the facility and so on. It's actually covered under Advice Notes 23 and 24 in detail. And that was envisaged by DFAS and their advice to us, and that's outlined in the submission table. I think that only that point. In terms of the comments raised by the applicant, Josh, in terms of the advice note.
The changes to the advice
Yeah, the
note.
changes. The reference actually should have read potential impacts over the towers.
So that's for.
It was advice note 25.
The advice note 9. That was to do with the masts.
Sorry, yeah.
Recommending deletion of that. Do you have a problem with deleting that? Given no masts?
Well, there are towers there proposed and further detail to be provided. Towers up to 60 metres, and that was just to cover off any aspect of consideration of aircraft and what sort of lighting that's needed for those towers.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question on that specifically?
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that the language of that condition should just be any proposed masks?
Yeah.
Rather than being specifically referenced to meteorological?
Yeah. If I might add through the chair, page 79 of PDF will outline the masks being referenced. The legend suggests that they would be lighting/lightning towers up to 30 metres in height, but given the scale of that document, it appears that it seems to align with transmission towers, which are 60 metres in height. That's the basis for that advice note.
Okay. And advice note 25.
In relation to advice note 25, I suppose the planning framework broadly hasn't necessarily kept up with this renewable energy space, and we felt like the renewable energy code was a reasonable starting point to try and give the applicant some guidance as to what we would expect through the detailed design space. It's advice.
Yeah.
If it's not on, so be it. Yeah. If it is, they're at least aware of roughly what it is that the Shire wants to see. So we're not here nor there on that one.
Sorry if I may add, presiding member, the intent of that was because the renewable energy code is still being drafted and the section on BESS is not finalised, by the time they come to construction, it's likely it will be finalised, and maybe the BESS facilities would be incorporated. So it was just to consider it. It could be taken out or could be left in, or could be referring to a future document down the road if that.
Okay. All right. Now, are there any questions of the council staff? Yes, Member Premji.
First, there's two questions. First one, I'll go for the second question. I think by putting advice note 25 and saying it's in a draft mode in renewable, and that one in particular is at the moment focusing on wind farms, there's a potential that it could become an obstacle to this particular construction. And if it's gone down 95% and it gets renewed, it's a bit difficult to go back and try to change everything. So I think we need to keep in mind that the Shire, I know you're saying you don't mind whether it's in or out, but I think the Shire needs to also understand that if the project is substantially downstream to completion, and if this thing comes through, that needs to be taken into account, that you can't go back and revisit right the initial phase. I just need to be mindful of that. The second question is on page 20. I better make sure I look at the right one. Yeah, condition 15. You have said in condition 15, if I go to that, the approved emergency management plan is to be implemented. Now, I read the emergency management plan, and it's the only place where it incorporates 2 by 288,000 litre tanks. Is this Shire's intent that emergency management plan, which is the only document that emphasises that those litres, would be sufficient to ensure that those tanks go in under condition 15?
I think that was the recommendation of DFES. If I look at the
Yeah, that's fine. It's just that in the body of the report, you've actually made the comment that that particular amount would be covered under condition 15. So I went up and looked at condition 15, as you can see what it's written. So then I went back again into the emergency management plan to read the document to find the 288,000 litre tanks by 2. You are expecting that? You think that is sufficient to cover it for the requirement?
there are two types of emergency management plan. One is the bushfire emergency plan, and there's a overall emergency management plan, which will be a further document provided at a later date. So that's a requirement of that condition.
But hang on, it says the approved emergency management plan is to be implemented.
Yep.
Okay. So what you're saying is condition 14 to go first before 15. So in the 14, you will expect to incorporate that. All right. It's the way the report was written and the comment made when I went to look at condition 15. So it should be condition 14 and 15. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all. There was a bit of confusion there. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think separately, condition 13's dealing with the bushfire management separately as well.
Yep. Okay. Any further questions? No? Thank you very much. Well, we can now move into our discussion on the application. And in order that we do that, I'll need the mover and seconder for the recommendation. Do I have a mover? Yes, Member Lafanti. Do I have a seconder? Yes, Member Premji. Member Lafanti, if you wish to speak to you.
Thank you. I note this is a use not listed. I'm satisfied the material provided to us in the explanation that has been discussed at today's meeting is that it is appropriate and suitable for consideration within its zone. Of particular consideration from my perspective is a very small part of this overall site. I think it said in the detail we had 7% of the site, and we've also had confirmed today that the remainder of the site will be predominantly used for agriculture in terms of cattle grazing. I'm satisfied that the proposal has been thoroughly assessed by the relevant agencies, including the Shire, and that there are no adverse visual, traffic, noise or amenity impacts on the surrounding sensitive land uses. And these have been outlined in the technical reports submitted with the application. I've also considered the submissions raised, and I do note that one of the submissions talked about qualifying the consideration of or their comments, noting that they wanted to be able to have a similar application. And from my perspective, from a planning perspective, I have set that aside and have considered this matter only on its merits, and that any consideration of adjoining property will be considered at that point on their merits based on the planning framework. So I have separated that particular element out. I'm satisfied that this proposal meets the various provisions under clause 67(2) and that the associated assessment's been undertaken for the site. I'm also agree with the measures that have been incorporated into the proposal and has been discussed today in relation to considerations of impact, particularly in relation to fire and impacts of safety on the site and in the broader area. I would also like to move some amendments.
Yes, please continue.
My amendment 1 is modifying advice note 9. My modification is really to remove the word meteorological and retain the rest of the language in there.
Do I have a seconder? Yes, Member Premji.
I agree with both the Shire officers and the applicant, and in order to clarify that it is related to masks and not specifically meteorological masks, and to obviously ensure that there's a connection back with Air Services Australia. And that's my change.
Okay, Member Premji wants to say anything on the amendment?
No further comment. I'm happy with it. Thank you.
Any other comments from other members of the panel on the amendment? If not, I'll put it straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you.
My second amendment is in relation to advice note 25. I'm seeking to delete that completely.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Yes, Member Premji.
My reasons, I accept the points again made by both applicant and Shire. I also note comments made in today's meeting about staging and construction of the development. As far as I'm concerned, it is an advice note as indicated by Shire officers. The applicant has obligations through the other conditions, and so therefore the removal of this is of very limited impact on the proposal, or no impact on the proposal as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Member Premji, any comment?
No further comments. I agree. Thank you.
Are there any other member wish to speak to the amendment? If not, I'll put the amendment. All in favour? Thank you.
I think I've said all my comments I did want to say in relation to the proposal. I'm satisfied that it is appropriate on this site.
Thank you. Member Premji, you wish to speak to the
Yes, yes, I do. The development application and the BESS, it aligns with the Shire strategic planning framework. It also aligns very much so with the state government's energy transformation strategy. All the matters, all the key matters and the potential risk during the construction and operation has been addressed very effectively and efficiently with the conditions and the advisory notes. So yes, I think this is a very good BESS system, and I thank all the applicant for doing it, and the Shire officers are doing a very good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Panel members, Councillor Balcombe or Councillor Hine, you wish to speak to the item at all? No? Okay. Look, I'll just reiterate the comments of my colleagues on the panel that the application has been well and truly assessed through the council staff, and I commend them for the comprehensive report, made it easier for us. And it's obviously been through a fairly rigorous assessment through the technical reports that accompanied the application. The proponents have given us a background and a bit more information on the strategic importance of the application and the proposal. Well suited to the site. It's just near the Western Power facility that's under construction. It's minimal impact on the site itself, and issues such as bushfire and fire risk have all been covered. So it's a application that is going to increase the electrical infrastructure and smooth out the peak demands. So I'm supporting it. So Member Lafanti, you wish to close debate?
Nothing further.
All right, then I'll put the recommended and amended proposal to a vote. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, and I'll just finish off the agenda by going to item 4, no Form 2 DAP applications. Item 5, no SAP reconsiderations. Part D, set applications for DAPs are listed in members of the panel, the presenters and the council staff and our governance team. Thank you very much. 12:04.